Welcome in to the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Craig Burley and Shaka Hislop. We'll kick things off in France, where Luis Enrique seems on the cusp of being announced as the new PSG manager. We've talked about this a lot, haven't we, over the last couple of weeks. He was very much the favourite to take over from Gaultier, and our very own Julien has been reporting this over the last 24 hours. So more on this move. Let's welcome in, shall we? In Darke is with us, and Julien Laurent. Jules, as your PSG man, are you happy?
Yeah, I am happy. I'm always excited when you've got a new manager, and it happens all the time for us. So I'm going to try to sell you as best as I can Luis Enrique in Paris, the style of football, which is great. We saw that with Spain, we saw that with Barcelona before. The personality that he has and the fact that discipline is very important to him, which I think is something that's been lacking at the club for many, many years now. So like that on paper, it looks a really good appointment. In a year's time, when he gets sacked, it will be very different, of course, because that's inevitable. But right now, I'm very excited, like a lot of PSG fans.
I believe the expression is déjà vu, Jules.
Doesn't everyone go in there and think discipline's important?
Gaultier's going to... Yeah, that's what I'm
This is not a new script. Right, lads. I'm all for discipline here. I know you're a talented bunch, but we really have to have discipline. And somewhere in the background, there's a lot of chuckling. I suppose Jules talked about style of play. If you follow PSG, you didn't want somebody like Mourinho or Antonio Conte because of the style. But look, you just never know what's going to work. Obviously, there's a relationship there with Neymar from before, but that's not the Neymar that he had. You know, there's a lot of water has gone under the bridge since then. There's the Mbappe scenario that we don't know how is going to play out and unfold. And obviously Messi's gone, so there's lots to be done at PSG off the back of what was a really, at times, it seemed unstable season last year. But yeah, I mean, if he can get everybody on board and they recruit well, on the face of it, it looks a more than decent appointment.
Jules mentioned in his style of football, obviously some great stuff at Barcelona. I wouldn't say Spain were the best team to watch, though. There was a lot of sideways stuff.
At the World Cup, in the end, I mean, they scored 7 goals in their first game, playing beautiful football, against inferior opposition. They went out in the end in the round of 16 to Morocco, but they were great, I thought, at the Euros. I mean, Luis Enrique he's not going to suffer fools, and that's probably going to be a big plus, dealing with the big personalities at Paris Saint-Germain. And you know, it's as good an appointment as they could realistically make. They've been working their way. It's like a who's who. The guys have been in charge. This quest to win the Champions League. One of the guys being linked is Bernardo Silva, of course, of Manchester City, who'd be a terrific signing because they've had 3 guys up front, none of whom track back. Bernardo Silva will.
Let's talk about one of those guys up front, shall we, Jules? Craig mentioned it, obviously a great relationship with Neymar when he was in charge at Barcelona and had all that success. Any chance you can kind of get that old Neymar back?
It's one of the questions that we have over the arrival of Luis Enrique. Craig mentioned it was a very different Neymar at the time. It was 8 years ago. It's a long time, that the season where they do the treble with Barcelona in 2015. With Suarez and Messi up front. So since then, he had all those injuries in the last 6 years, especially only playing half of the game that PSG have played. Again, coming back on a new injury with surgery this time on his ankle back in February after the World Cup. So we will have to see what changes the Luis Enrique arrival was that PSG were very much like, let's open the door and the windows and the French door and the Velux, everything you want for him to go. Now, Luis Enrique said, hang on a minute, I believe in him. I know I can get a better Neymar than what you've seen in the last 6 seasons. I'm sure I can. Or maybe not. Maybe Luis Enrique just said, listen, I agree with you. He's 31 now. He's never going to be back to the Neymar that I know, that we know, the best version of Neymar. So it's better if he goes and if we find him a club. And if we can't find him a club, then I'll work with him, of course. So right now, we don't know exactly where Luis Enrique stands in the Neymar situation. But from what we're hearing, it looks like he wants to keep him and work with him and have him as a key player in the team.
Well, who's going to take him?
Well, no one's going to pay those sort of wages.
Well, just for the wages, unless he goes to Saudi Arabia.
Now, you take a look at this potential starting 11. Is this good enough to win the Champions League?
On paper, it is. But
really?
But my point being, we've been saying that about PSG for God alone knows how long, that on paper, PSG have been able to put out outstanding teams. The trouble is when you have to do some of the dirty work, I just feel that they have too many passengers. One of them in particular being Neymar. I've sat here and time again I've said PSG's biggest issue is one around the culture of that dressing room. And I think Neymar has been the biggest proponent of that. Okay, Lionel Messi's now moved on. As we sit right now, and I know we have a long summer to go, but I think it's more likely that Kylian Mbappe will be somewhere other than Paris come August or at the very least September. But I just don't see Neymar moving on. I don't see anybody wanting to take Neymar on, given what he gives you, given what his salary is. So as a result, you're asking Luis Enrique to build a team around him and at the very least put 9 outfield players to do some of that tracking back, some of that dirty work that all teams do, all teams have to do if they do win the Champions League. Listen, I understand they have a previous relationship, but I just don't think anybody gets that out of a 31-year-old Neymar.
We've gone and done it now.
What have we done?
You mentioned Kylian Mbappe not being there at the start of the season.
Oh,
so I have to ask Jules, and we have to go through this now. See what you've done?
Jules is ready for it. Jules likes talking about
Shaka's sources. What sources have you got, Shaka?
Those behind there.
Shaka's sources say that Mbappe's off.
Yeah, I mean, Shaka has good sources. I know we were together in Qatar for a long time. Kylian is in Miami, as you know, enjoying his time there on the beach, etc., etc. I think the situation really and the latest is very much the status quo of what we've said before and what we heard is PSG are still saying, listen, if you don't extend your contract, we can't let you leave on a free in the summer 2024. This is not possible. I mean, PSG financially, with financial fair play, and just to balance their book, need some money. If he was to go, they need to sell him. They need to bring some money in, especially after how much it's been costing them last season with the new contract and potentially this season coming as well. So for him to live on a free, I think financially would be really, really bad for the club. But right now he's in such a strong position because he said, hang on a minute, I don't want to go anywhere. I'm very happy to stay. I want to stay another year with Luis Enrique, with Neymar. I want to try one more season, one more time to win the Champions League for my hometown, for my home club. And after that, then it's another story. I don't even want to talk about the future. That's what I was told. He doesn't even want to talk about the future. So PSG face what? You force him to leave, you force him to find him another club, like a Real Madrid or, I don't know, Premier League club, whoever. But if he doesn't want to move, that's going to be very difficult. So it's a incredible situation, really, because it's very rare for one of the best players in the world to be in that kind of situation. But as we've said before, he's a very smart kid. The people around him are very smart, and he maneuvered this one very, very well.
He's not going to enter Miami, is he? I mean, I mean, 2 and 2 makes 5. I mean, you know, he could be there saying, listen, you know how he's got an ego. You wanted Messi, you didn't want me.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, kind of
Take
thing.
him in. Or maybe he's going to go to Orlando. Big rivalry down in Florida.
Columbus.
There you go.
I always throw Columbus in. I've never been to Columbus, Ohio, but I always throw. That's my go-to. That's my go-to.
You know, Shaka's Columbus story. So we went there to cover the US like years ago, and there was the domestic team, and there was us. And the domestic team were in the posh hotel, and Shaka turned up, and they were like, "No, you're with the EFC lot down the road."
Yeah, but you're like, you don't mind that, son. You're a man of the people, isn't you?
Very much so. Very much so.
The rest is done. Skriniar, Lucas Hernandez at the back, Ugarte, of course, as a number 6. But then those 3 positions are still to be filled. And right now, the Colomani, Bernardo Silva, and Gabri Veiga are very much the 3 names that are right at the top of the list. And they can, I think, they can potentially make them 3, maybe 2 out of the 3. I think Colomani might be the most difficult one because of all the clubs that will want him this summer. But from Bernardo Silva and Gabri Veiga, I think those look quite positive at the moment. Certainly what the first feedback that the club has. If you add those 3 to the current squad, and if Luis Enrique can hit the ground running straight away, has everybody on board, I think that could potentially be very interesting.
Why would Man City entertain letting Bernardo Silva go? And I know Bernardo Silva has made some comments in the past about potential leaving, but that was at the time Barcelona, I believe. Why would Man City were entertained and letting go Well, Gundogan went on a free, so it kind of Guardiola didn't stand in his way. Raheem Sterling, they felt they'd seen the best years of him, but not Bernardo Silva.
That's Jules.
Because he wants to leave. I think with Pep it's very simple, and I think Guardiola has been on record saying, if you don't want to be here, if you don't want to play for us, then we agree to sell you. And we saw that with Cancelo, we saw that with Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko to a certain extent, but Cancelo is the prime example. Cancelo went to see Guardiola and said, listen, I'm not happy, I don't want to be here anymore. And they let him go, they sold him. And I think with Bernardo Silva, it would be the same. I think he feels that right now, maybe it's the right time to leave after the treble, after quite a long time at the club. Let's be honest here, 6 years is a long time, or 5 years is a long time. He feels that he needs something different at this stage of his career. That's the only reason. But let's not forget as well that a year ago, he was a sub. The club wanted to let him go. He would have been happy to stay, but City were trying to sell him. Then he turned things around, and he was obviously very good, and especially in this treble season. But I think the feeling is that now he wants another chapter in his career.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.